that's actually not necessarily true. The winning the game, that's someone else's issue, because we ask ourselves this question: should kids have to win a game? They should want to win a game, right?
Right.
But why do they have to win a game? Do they feel they have to win a game because, if we win the game, my coach keeps the job? If we win the game, mom and dad are maybe happier than if we don't. And I can't judge all the different types of environments and people's attitudes there, but the child should never feel that they have to win the game. They should play to win it, and they should play to try to do their best to score goals, because that's the objective. But
and
the learning has to come through that.
Yeah, and the irony of, if you're a coach that says to their players, it's okay if we don't win, and then people say, oh, your coach is just too soft. Well, what they probably didn't hear after that was what you mentioned, which is, we're here to try to win and to play the best we can regardless. And that takes way more guts than just saying, suck it up, Buttercup. You got to get out there and win. That is the easiest, truly most, I hate to say it, cowardly way to go about, and just the iron that it's portrayed the opposite way. And I think we've turned the corner. I mean, I think we really are starting to turn the corner, because it got to be so bad with the way youth sports in general is going, with the recruiting of middle schoolers and things like that. That I think the pendulum is coming back. And before we start, and that really gets to parents, the huge role that parents have, which is not how the training and the level of training and clubs that you connect your kids with. It's everything but that. But I do want to go back to, you've got the drill and skill method, which is we got to do this, we got to do this. And again, I think a lot of that does come from at the grassroots level, which we're talking the vast majority of people that coach, just based on that pyramid, are going to be out there just helping out one season. But you find all the, it's the unusual space, the unusable space because of rain or something, and you're not seeing your environment of, how did I pick this activity, whether it's game-like or drill-like, that was actually going to not be frustrating, with, you mentioned too big of a space, too small of a space. And that's where I think the attention needs to be. But what came around a while ago, and I heard this, and being an engineer, I had to do the math, but who came up with the 10,000 hour myth or rule, that it takes 10,000 hours to master something? Because I think that was one of the worst things that came around.
Yeah, it's based on research and in a varied environments of professional, like people reaching the highest level of their chosen profession, and everything has to always be put into context. So we tend at times to look at research and apply it to environments that don't connect to how the research was actually conducted. So we have a little quote that it's we talk about hours of training and on the field and off the field, and this 10,000 hour idea. And then we talk about touches. So in soccer, it was always about maximizing touches. You need to get hundreds and thousands and hundreds of thousands of touches. And actually, we said, instead of maximizing touches and getting 1,000 touches, let's try to get 1,000 decisions,
right,
with the ball, right? Because that's taking that next step. Touches is technical. A more holistic idea is decisions. The ball is part of that. The technique is part of that. Reading and understanding the game is part of that. And this idea of street soccer, if you watch the way kids learn and kids play when there isn't any adult supervision around, they actually do these things. They don't run laps and do stretches and then do 3 drills and then start to scrimmage. If you just give kids a space and a ball, they will actually figure it out. If the field is too big, they'll make it smaller. If one team is uneven than the other, then they'll balance it out. If there are fewer kids than they thought would be there, they'll find a solution. If there's an odd number, they'll find a solution. If the rules aren't clear, they'll clarify the rules. So this learning environment, the children, if you leave them to their own devices, they'll actually set up a learning environment without even realizing it, if you just look at street sport and street soccer in particular. So it's really about, if we don't have a culture of street soccer in the U.S. and we can't bring soccer to the streets, well, let's bring the streets to the soccer. So this training environment, really, and the coach's role in it, is meant to be a simple and effective way that the coach can set up, observe, and facilitate learning of the game in a holistic environment without having to do maybe as much verbal coaching as historically has been done, other than giving kids praise and really supporting them. And this idea that parents, you mentioned parents, they're key. Of course, they're arguably the most important person in the child's world, and the player development idea with player-centered learning environments connects deeply to parents, because they're the ones who are paying at times unbelievable amounts of money to have their child play in a club. And now they look at the coach's behavior and they have certain expectations. And those expectations of a coach are based on their beliefs or what they've seen elsewhere or the player's perceived needs. And now all of a sudden, let's say at our grassroots level, they're looking out there and they see a coach who isn't talking the whole time, who isn't running up and down the sideline, giving positive feedback that actually isn't accurate. Because when I missed the goal, it wasn't a great shot. So why am I saying great shot? It maybe was a good decision or a great effort or a good try. Okay, we can argue if I've missed it by an inch versus a mile. But we have these expectations of coaches. They're going to tell the kids what to do. They're going to encourage them. They're going to praise them. They're going to talk, a heck of a lot. And really what the reality should be is a coach that maybe isn't as verbally active, that asks questions. And the parent might say, well, how can they know the game? They ask the kids all these questions. They don't even know the answers themselves. Well, how do we help parents understand the way that kids learn and how our training environment and game environment, for that matter, should represent the same exact thing of this child being the owner of their learning? It's, again, something that will transpire over years, certainly not weeks and months. And we're taking those steps very clearly, and our educational offerings from grassroots and beyond will really be based on really changing behavior in coaches, which will lead to positive developmental changes in the behavior of players.
For parents that are listening, and they'll say, well, I only have so much time, or I don't have any help. Oh, I want to make that change, but excuse me, that's just not something I have time to be the head coach. I've noticed, again, at that grassroots level, you only need one person that really understands the game well enough, technically. What you need are a couple parents to be bench coaches, because there's so much learning that's going on all over the place. And you do need a head coach that has an idea for combinations of players on the field. There is strategy and so forth, but you can't abandon them on the bench. And I reached out to a rec council and I said, do you ever have enough coaches? And they said, no. I said, I think if you recruit coaches by just being the bench coach, they just might learn how to be a coach, and you wouldn't have to wonder how to, you wouldn't feel the need to keep controlling. There could be this discussion, because as a head coach, I was horrible for girls lacrosse. Okay, and it's not because I guess it's partly because I'm a guy and I learned to play lacrosse in Central Illinois, but it's just not my strength, as far as the tactician. But to communicate with the kids helps. So I went back as a bench coach, and it's amazing what you can do when you ask the questions. That there would be kids that would come back to say, hey, when I was out there, I saw this. What do you think I should have done? And I didn't tell them what to do. I said, well, tell me more about it. And you can really get them engaged without knowing anything to do. And it's such a huge part, I think, at the grassroots level. There just isn't, it's not all or nothing, parents. You don't have to be the one that is responsible for the win or loss. And yes, hopefully we'll get to a point where the parents really, truly just, all they say is, I love to watch you play. But I think that's a big part of it in the coaching education, is this other very complementary, very necessary group of coaches that are the bench coach, that are not there to keep stats, which some people think that they're keeping track of steals and turnovers and things like that. They need to keep track of the players' attention and mindset. That are they engaged? What's going on? Hey, look at what they did right there. Oh, that was awesome. Oh, that was really hard. So when you see that, here's how you don't criticize the kid. That's what I've found to be and it's terribly rewarding. I mean, that's the other part too. As far as it really is a parent, it allows you to get engaged without getting nuts, because it is hard. It really is hard when you're not trained.
Yeah.
But
I agree, Dave. It's in a perfect world, there would be no bench coach because there'd be no players on the bench to coach, right?
Right.
So small rosters, and we've put out our player development initiatives over the past couple of years, and now they're really being implemented and being driven across the landscape. And we talk about roster size. So the idea is to have kids playing. And we know that if you have smaller roster sizes, you need more coaches because you'll need more teams. So how do we keep kids playing soccer by giving them great experiences, which means coaches provide opportunities for those experiences to be ones they want to repeat, which means coaches have a great experience, so they want to repeat it. And often a coach has a great experience when they get to work with somebody else. And you touched on that really well, that we're not trying to say that everything is on one end or the other. It's not about only ask questions versus have an extreme technical and tactical and understanding of the game that you can bring to the children. There's this balance, and different people may play different roles. So the key behind all of it is giving players unconditional attention, and we do that by building rapport and building relationships with these children. And you talked about how the coach that maybe doesn't have a ton of soccer experience can still assist and guide the player and accelerate their learning. It's simply by observing behaviors. So really what we want coaches to be able to do is to observe and to recognize that for a behavior that they observe, there's also a behavior that the coach is being asked to display. So and we haven't talked about this yet, but we're talking about a huge range of ability levels and ages. So it's different with a 6-year-old than with a 12-year-old than with a 16-year-old. And the different levels that the kids are playing at also plays a role. But the idea of people and relationships is universal. And how kids learn and how coaches can facilitate learning, it's universal no matter what level you are or what country on the planet you're in. So this idea of how the behavior of a player, and by behavior, I'm not talking about good or bad, I'm talking about their playing behavior, what they exhibit, what they show, what they demonstrate. How does that inform me as a coach? So if I see that the young kids at 8, 7 years old have a really, really short attention span and only live in the moment, well, does that inform me as a coach that maybe I shouldn't give them 5-minute lectures and have them standing around waiting for their opportunity to play and talk about something that happened 5 minutes ago? Well, no, it means actually need to be really quick and in and out and give them a variety of opportunities and activities. And if we're going to give them feedback about now, what just happened now, and not something that happened earlier. And you could take that across all the different developmental stages of kids. You don't need to be a soccer expert to do that. So I think what you're talking about, we're speaking the same language, that we want all of these coaches, these sort of entry-level coaches. And it's not only parent volunteers, right? It's the teenage player that wants to help out in their kid brother or kid sister's team, or that just wasn't able to keep playing soccer because of an unfortunate injury, but really is passionate about the game. We want to grow the numbers of players. We want this game to become the preeminent sport in the U.S. We want the experiences to be so good that they're worth repeating. And when we see youth sport is losing kids and referee numbers are diminishing and players are dealing with childhood stress of all different types in their lives, and we're thinking of how do we actually work to counter that. So we ask ourselves those questions. Are we making the game accessible for all? Is it easy to participate? Are we growing participation? Are we creating environments that are growth-oriented? Are we making players better? because that's at the end of the day what we also want to do. We want to develop